Welcome to Litbit channel. Let's we see Imam and I by Amitav Ghosh. Let's we see the short answer for this prose. Why does Kami's father greet the narrator like the long lost friend the very first time meets him? Kami's father was worked as a laborer in Alexandria during the Second World War, where he met many Indian soldiers who are very gently and kind. So at their first meeting, Kami's father greeted the narrator as he would a long lost friend. How does Kami's father describes the Indian soldiers he had known once? The Indian soldiers were tall and dark that many of Egyptians were afraid of them, but they were the most generous of all the soldiers. What concern did the old man harbor about his children? The old man was concerned that his daughter Basania was struggling with two sons, and his son Kamis was always worried about his childlessness. Why did the old man think that he was to blame for how Kamis had turned out? The old man insisted his son Kamis to marry and wished to see his grandchildren before his death. But it didn't happen. He blamed himself for this. Why was Kamis insisted that the narrator speak with Imam Ibrahim? Kamis thought that Imam's blunt needles of injection and medicines might help his wife to get cured for getting child. So Kamis insisted that narrator to speak with Imam Ibrahim. What contention against India did the Imam primarily have? Imam's prime contentions against India were the Indians worship cows and burn their dead. Why did the Imam expect the narrator to raise his voice against the practice in India? Imam expected the narrator to raise his voice against the practice of India because this practice are primarily and backward customs. He has also raised the question to the narrator that how Indians can progress with this practice. What about the West accords it the status of the advanced in the eyes of those in the East? The East thought that the West are not ignorant. They are advanced and educated. They have science, guns, tanks and bombs. How is the following statement ironic? The Imam and I delegates from two civilizations weaving with each other to establish a prior claim to the technology of modern violence. The irony in the statements is that the two civilizations are comparatively different. B. They compete themselves with the West and claim that they are superior in guns, tanks and bombs. Let's see the 4 mark. What is the mental makeup of a expatriate? Expatriate is a person who live outside their native country. He experiences a challenge with integrating into a new culture. He has to adjust to the culture in order to shine in professional and personal life. An expatriate has to follow the culture and the lifestyle. In Imam and I, Indian could not able to raise his voice against the religious man Imam. It is the fate of the narrator to accept the culture crisis of Egypt. Bring out the cultural concerns in the extract. The Imam and I brings out the pathos of two civilizations, one of the ancient Egypt and the other of India, weaving with each other to lay claims to violence of the West. The cultural context is completely different in Egypt and India. Imam prime contentions against India are that the Indian worship cows and burns their dead. In Egypt, the people won't burn the dead body. Imam, a village religious man, does not Indian to use English language. He has criticized Indian for not knowing Arabic language. From the argument between religious leader and an academic, both of them are talked about Western culture by comparing their own country. Western culture is completely different. Indian culture is quietly different from Egypt, from the words of Kami's father. We can easily understand that India has a long history. The Indians are tall and dark and they are the most generous people in the world. Sketches the character of Imam. Imam, a religious leader, has deliberately ignored to talk Indian at first. He has sarcastically criticized the Indians that the Indian does not know the Arabic language. He has criticized that English is the easiest language to learn. There is no use of English language. Imam's prime contentions against India are that Indians worship cows and burn the dead. Imam expects the narrator to raise his voice against the practice of India because these practices are primitive and backward customs. He has also raised the question to the narrator that how Indian can progress this practice. When the narrator gives his answer about Western culture, Imam has scornfully called Indians as a liar. In the course of conversation, Imam is furious that the Egypt are second only to West and they have guns and bombs better than Indians. Imam is an old fashioned village man who always believes that their custom is a good and appropriate.
இந்த வீடியோ உங்களுக்கு பிடிச்சிருந்தா மறக்காமல் லைக் பண்ணுங்கள், ஷேர் பண்ணுங்கள், கமெண்ட் பண்ணுங்கள், சப்ஸ்கிரைப் பண்ணி கூட இருக்க பெல் ஐக்கானையும் ப்ரெஸ் பண்ணுங்கள். தேங்க்யூ ஃபார் வாட்சிங்.